A very good morning to all of you. As we await the commencement of the seminar, we intend to screen a short video about the Admiral's Cup Regatta. I am delighted to announce that the Admiral's Cup Regatta 2024 will be held in December this year at the Indian Naval Academy. We request all the delegates to kindly consider sending their teams for the event. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you all to please settle down as we start the seminar at 0840 hours. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request all the liaison officers to kindly leave the seminar hall, and we'll be starting with the proceedings of the day. Permission to start, sir. Excellencies and chiefs of navies across the globe, heads of delegations, flag officers, commanding officers, distinguished delegates, foreign service attaches, officers, members of the media, and esteemed participants. Namaskar and a very good morning to all of you. It's my honor and a great privilege to welcome you all to the International Maritime Seminar as a part of MILAN 24. My name is Lieutenant Commander Sushil Uttam Rao Bodke. I'm a submariner, and I'm truly delighted to be your host for this prestigious event. The central aim of the biennial event MILAN is to enhance professional interaction between friendly navies and gain experience in multilateral large force operations at sea. In the spirit of synergy, we aim to unlock new avenues for growth, innovation, and sustainable development. Throughout the course of this seminar, we'll engage in meaningful discussions, exchange insights, and cultivate partnerships that will define the future of our interconnected maritime community. From sustainable practices to technological advancements, the opportunities for collaboration are as vast as the oceans themselves. That said, let me now acquaint you all to the conduct of this seminar. The International Maritime Seminar is spread over 4 sessions. The first session will be held today, and the remaining 3 sessions will be held tomorrow. The discussions in the first session will be centered on the theme, Partners Across Oceans, Collaboration, Synergy, Growth. The theme encapsulates the essence of our shared mission, that is, to foster collaboration that transcends geographical boundaries. Our collective aim for the first session will be to embrace the diversity of expertise present in this room, recognizing that our collective strength lies in the collaboration between nations, industries, and individuals. By working together, we can navigate the challenges ahead and chart a course towards a maritime future marked by resilience, prosperity, and harmony. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, may I request the session chair, Admiral Karambir Singh, retired, Chairman, National Maritime Foundation, New Delhi, and the speakers for the session, Professor Christian Beuger from the University of Copenhagen, Vice Admiral Blake Converse, the Deputy Commander of the United States Pacific Fleet, Vice Admiral Saito Akira, the Commander-in-Chief of Self-Defense Forces, Japan, and Vice Admiral Emmanuel Slas, the Joint Commander of the French Forces in the IOR, to please come on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Slas will be joining us shortly. The session chair, Admiral Karambir Singh, retired, was India's 24th Chief of the Naval Staff. The Admiral was commissioned into the Indian Navy in July 1980 and is an alumnus of the prestigious National Defence Academy, Khadakwasla, and a graduate from the Defence Services Staff College, Wellington, and College of Naval Warfare, Mumbai. A naval aviator, he earned his wings in 1981 as a helicopter pilot and has flown extensively on Chetak helicopters and several variants of Kamau helicopters. Over the 4 decades of service under the Indian Navy's White Ensign, he has commanded the Indian Coast Guard ship Chand Bibi, the guided missile corvette INS Vijaydurg, and 2 of the Indian Navy's frontline guided missile destroyers INS Rana and INS Delhi. He has also tenanted various seagoing appointments, including that of Fleet Operations Officer of the Western Fleet. He has served in the Directorate of Naval Air Staff at the Naval Headquarters and has been Captain Air and Officer in charge of the Naval Air Station at Mumbai. On promotion to the flag rank, the Admiral has served as the Chief of Staff of the Eastern Naval Command. He has also tenanted other critical flag appointments, including those of Chief of Staff of the Tri-Services Unified Command in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and the Flag Officer commanding Maharashtra and Gujarat Naval Area. As a Vice Admiral, he was the Director General, Project Seabird, and oversaw all aspects of the development of the Indian Navy's base at Karwar, located in India's southern state of Karnataka. Appointed thereafter as the Deputy Chief of the Naval Staff, the Admiral discharged his responsibilities towards the Indian Navy's current and future operational and combat capacity and capabilities. He then served as the Vice Chief of the Naval Staff, involved with development of the future Navy. He has a rich store of senior command experience and has been the Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Eastern Naval Command, with his headquarters at this very city of Visakhapatnam. He assumed the command of the Indian Navy on 31st of May 2019 and served as the Chief of the Naval Staff until retirement in November 2021. Post-retirement, the Admiral has assumed the chairmanship of the National Maritime Foundation at New Delhi. With that, may I now request you, sir, to please take over the proceedings of the first session.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So nice to be here with all of you in Visakhapatnam. Also, once again, a warm welcome to all our overseas guests from friendly countries. I understand about 50 countries and 16 ships and aircraft from foreign navies are here for the exercise. Thank you all for your participation. This, as you all know, is the 12th edition of MILAN, and this exercise has come a long way since its humble beginnings in the mid-90s, those days in the Andaman Islands. So I was the Chief of Staff of the Andaman Nicobar Command in 2011 and 12, and we ran one of the editions of MILAN. Even then, I think the potential of this exercise in enhancing regional maritime cooperation and professional interaction was pretty evident. And therefore, it was only a matter of time that this exercise would expand in scope and participation. And true to that, in 2018 edition, for example, had about 17 navies participating. So as the exercise started gaining popularity, we at Naval Headquarters felt at that time that the time was ripe to go big. Vision was to make MILAN something like the RIMPAC of the East. For that to happen, we decided to shift the venue to Visakhapatnam, which has more facilities and bandwidth than Andaman's. And MILAN 2022, as you all know, was a great success. This is just a little background I thought I'd share with you. Coming to today's maritime seminar, I'm first of all truly honored and privileged to be moderating this opening session that has a lineup of such brilliant minds in this panel with years of experience and expertise on issues maritime. And the theme, as you all can see, partners across the oceans, collaboration, synergy, growth. So, as an aside, last night I met someone. He told me that this topic of maritime cooperation, collaboration, etc. was a much flogged horse. So my reply to him was that this horse, or mare, or mare, as mare liberum, has to be constantly groomed and not flogged. Because, ladies and gentlemen, to my mind, maritime collaboration is the oxygen for maritime security. And we all know why. Because firstly, safe and secure seas are absolutely critical for our collective growth, prosperity and security. Maritime security is a public good that we as navies are expected to provide to our nations, the region and indeed the world. Also, given the vast expanse and complexity of the seas around us, there is a realization, as the Chief of Naval Staff yesterday said, that no one nation or navy can do it alone. Therefore, the need to work together. Also, if you see, several challenges at sea are transnational or even trans-regional in nature, whether it's IUU fishing, drugs, piracy, terror, climate change. Therefore, nations and navies need to collaborate to tackle them. And fortunately for us, navies are built keel upwards for cooperation and collaboration. Habits of cooperation and collaboration are in the DNA of most navies and come easily to us in naval uniform. So my job is not to give a big talk, but I just want to share a few points before I introduce the speakers and ask them to take the floor. You must have noticed that I, like many others, have used the terms cooperation and collaboration interchangeably. But there's an important difference between the two. And I just thought I'll share with you. Cooperation is when you work in support of someone. Therefore, for instance, a navy helping another navy through capacity building or capability enhancement would be engaging in maritime cooperation. On the other hand, collaboration is deeper and involves coming together and working for a shared goal and objective. So here, I would put engagements to build something like collective maritime competence, to achieve common objectives like free, open and inclusive maritime commons, for ensuring security at sea, for ensuring safety of maritime commerce, etc. as collaborative initiatives. So I for one, am very happy that the theme of this session uses the word collaboration. Also, when you once again look at the theme of the session, collaboration, synergy and growth, there's another word, synergy, which means that we as partners would focus on achieving greater outcomes, not just the common objective, but greater outcomes through combined efforts. And synergy, therefore, is more aspirational than collaboration. And here, perhaps, India's maritime initiatives like Sagar, Security and Growth for All in the region, or the IPOI, the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, which tries to give first-order specificity to Sagar, they would qualify as synergistic initiatives that aim to build such a level of trust, ballast and capability to enhance maritime security that growth and prosperity is promoted. Also here, synergy could be to work together for positive peace, as our Raksha Mantri mentioned yesterday. So to my mind, therefore, cooperation is the building block to collaboration. Cooperation is the building block to collaboration, and collaboration is the building block to synergy. And of course, synergy promotes growth. So kudos to the curators of this session for setting such a positive and aspirational theme or agenda. But having said that, everything is not so rosy. We are also aware that the world today and indeed the waters around us are pretty turbulent, murky and contested. Even in normal times, collaborating to ensure safe and secure seas is not easy and takes a lot of hard work. But in this post-COVID world, with conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, with several flashpoints, especially in the Indo-Pacific, all these exacerbated by fierce and corrosive geopolitical confrontation in all domains, further exacerbated by an ineffective moderating institution like the UN, we have serious challenges. I, for one, see a rapidly fracturing world. And to quote Professor Rory Metcalf, who said that if you look at the spectrum of interstate relations, we'll have collaboration and cooperation at the benign end, one end, and as we move to the right, we have degrees of coexistence, competition, contestation, confrontation, culminating in conflict towards the other end. Unfortunately, today, we seem to be at the confrontation end of the scale and just one step away from conflict. Therefore, there are strong headwinds for promoting collaboration and even stronger headwinds to achieving synergy. But again, to my mind, the only antidote to these challenges and headwinds is not to get sucked into the negative spiral of geopolitical contestation, the Cold War mentality that sometimes drowns out rationality, and to redouble efforts to collaborate even more. So I think I'll stop here on this note and introduce the very learned and illustrious panel of speakers of this session. Our first speaker, Professor Christian Bugge, who is the Professor of International Relations at the University of Copenhagen, Denmark. Professor Bugge is a leading scholar on maritime security and global ocean politics. He has extensively written on issues such as maritime strategy, laws of the sea, maritime domain awareness, blue crimes, operational coordination, and capacity building. His new book, titled Understanding Maritime Security, is due to be published shortly, and the book would be a new go-to resource for comprehensive understanding of maritime security. His current research is on developing guidelines for critical maritime infrastructure protection, including subsea data cables and offshore wind energy. The professor would be speaking to us on naval cooperation in critical maritime infrastructure protection. Professor, the floor is all yours. You have 15 minutes. I'll press the bell at minute 13, just as a reminder. Is there a bell? Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to address you here today. First of all, a big word of thanks for the introduction, but also for the Indian Navy for hosting us here. And I think events such as MILAN are extremely important to recognize how much the sea is in need of multilateral forms of cooperation, collaboration, and indeed also coordination. As was rightly flagged, no nation can do this on its own. What I would like to do here today is introduce you a little bit to the big picture. So I'm delighted that I was being put in the position to be the first speaker, because I would briefly invite you to reflect a little bit on how our relationship to the oceans has been fundamentally transformed over the past decades, and what that means for your work, what it means for the role of navies. And I'm going to summarize that in what I think is ahead of us, and that is the critical maritime infrastructure protection agenda. So I'm first going to talk a little bit about these mega trends that are currently shaping how we think about the oceans. Then talk a little bit about what I call the age of infrastructure, to which all of this can be summarized, and then tell you a little bit of what that might mean for your work, and perhaps a future MILAN, a future exercise can actually be devoted to the task of protecting infrastructures. So that's roughly my core points. Let's just jump straight into it. First of all, first mega trend is, if we look at the statistics number of how we are using the sea, we can observe a fundamental acceleration that has been taking place over the last 20 years. Across all activities, this is from a recent study who put this nicely into a graph. Across all maritime activities, we can see an acceleration. Maritime traffic is becoming more dense, infrastructure keeps on being built, and that has at least two consequences. First of all, your work is becoming more complex because you're dealing with way many more users and infrastructures at sea. And secondly, it also means that the sea does no longer belong to navies. Right? It is not sea power alone that can govern the seas. Much of sea power today is in the hands of private industries. It is shipping, it is wind farms, it is the diverse set of maritime activities. So quite a substantial power shift. The second mega trend is the question of biodiversity, the rise of the sustainability discourse, where we're no longer thinking about ocean resources as being unlimited, and where the sole problem is actually how to distribute it equally or answer questions of whose territory is a particular kind of discourse. Today, much about the ocean agenda is about protection. It is about conserving biodiversity, about making sure that the ocean actually has a future. And that has at least three consequences for the work of navies. First of all, there's a new spectrum of tasks. Navies contributing to marine protection. Secondly, the laws for the sea are changing. And last year we had the conclusion of a new United Nations treaty for the sea. And we do not know yet how this will have an impact on security and navies. Lastly, it also has the consequence that increasingly you will be asked to actually ensure that the emissions from military operations are lower and lower. The entire green defense agenda over the next coming years will become more and more prevalent. And the reason for that, quite obviously, is climate change. Climate change is now the common enemy of humankind, so to say, and it goes along with sea level rise. It goes along with more extreme weather events. And all of that means that the conditions of going out at sea are becoming more and more harsh, which will require future different kinds of platforms, but also training needs. Reversely, addressing climate change requires us to rely on green energy. The most efficient current green energy resource that is out there is at sea. It is offshore wind energy production, and you can combine it also with solar energy and so on. So the sea, in consequence, will even get a more busy infrastructural environment. You can see this already happening in regional seas such as the North Sea and Baltic Sea, which are highly industrialized zones in the end, where freedom of navigation is severely limited through infrastructures. That will be the future of other regional seas as well, and this requires a rethink of naval strategy. Now, one way of how these changes are currently being discussed is quite obviously through the concept of maritime security that I assume you're all familiar with. But there are also other big concepts now structuring the ocean debate, and that is most prominently the blue economy, the idea of using ocean resources sustainably in response to our energy needs, in response to our ideas of fostering economic growth. And I was delighted to see actually also the word growth in the title of the session here today. It is also about ocean health, protecting the oceans, and last but not least, and this is an emerging debate, it is also the question of blue justice, of how everyone can actually benefit from the current ocean resources, but also the future resources of the oceans. Now, what are the synergies between these four agendas? What do these trends actually mean? They basically amount to the claim that we need to get better in integrating ocean governance, rethinking how navies sit in this. And one way of how to do that is to recognize that the oceans are now this industrialized space that is kind of like characterized by high densities of infrastructure. And in consequence, if we are thinking along the line of infrastructures, the main task of navies is no longer freedom of navigation and resource control, but to take care and protect critical maritime infrastructure. And let me very quickly tell you about what that actually then implies. First of all, what are maritime infrastructures? Here on this graph, you can see an outline of the different types of infrastructures that we are talking about. They are quite obviously familiar: transport, energy. I already spoke about it. Energy, very, very important. Communication, often forgotten. The subsea data cable that our internet runs through. But indeed, we can also think about fishery and ecosystems as infrastructures of the future, as infrastructures, for instance, of carbon capture. How do these maritime infrastructures matter? Well, energy is the most important and obvious case. Maritime transport, 90% of everything is being transported by the sea. All of our trade relations depend on it. Communications, the internet runs on the subsea data cable. And last but not least, we also have to think about the future technologies and the future infrastructures. And here we have to acknowledge, if you want to get rid of the carbon that is polluting our planet, one way out is to recognize that the ocean is a carbon sink. And we have to recognize that there are opportunities for actually capturing and storing carbon on the ocean floor. Biodiversity is not only for the tree huggers. Biodiversity is not only about protecting nature per se. It is also about the future resources, the future genetic resources, for instance, that might help us to cure diseases. It is also about food and recreation for the well-being of a large part of the human population. So this is basically, when we're talking about maritime infrastructure protection, this is what is at stake. And quite obviously, you now might want to argue, not all of this is critical. And I fully agree. And one of the important points here is to agree which infrastructures need the protection of navies and where it is better other actors actually to do so. Very quickly, to look into the threats to critical maritime infrastructures. And here you can see a sort of cup, right, which reaches on the one side from natural disasters and accidents to crimes in the middle, gray zone activities and terrorism on the left-hand side, and then quite obviously acts of adversaries or coercion and up to even acts of war. Now, quite obviously, this is the setup of threats to maritime infrastructures. Not all of this requires navies, quite obviously. And as you can see from the spectrum of threats, navies will always be in the left side of the spectrum. Deter threats to infrastructures, ensure that terrorists cannot exploit our dependency on infrastructure, but also to ensure that blue criminals such as pirates or other malign actors actually manipulate our infrastructures. So this on the spectrum of threats. All of this, I think, amounts to a fascinating and very, very important new agenda which brings different kind of actors that care about the oceans, are in charge for governing it together. Quite obviously, and here's the bell, wonderful. What we need is a shared understanding what is actually critical. We need a better monitoring of the infrastructures to MDA. It implies a close collaboration with the industry, joint operations and exercises. But it also requires a recognition that the role of navies in all of this will always be limited and requires careful strategizing. Hoping that the bill doesn't ring again, the bell. Just to very briefly conclude, I think it's time to find new synergy across ocean politics. The age of infrastructure tells us that our relations to the oceans are fundamentally changing, have been changing over the last 15 years, and will fundamentally changing because of the acceleration, because of climate change, because of the sustainability discourse. So I hope that gives you some food for thought over the next couple of days, can inspire your strategic thinking, and I very much look forward to your questions, and I'm also open for conversations afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor. I love the graph that you showed earlier, the increased maritime activities. They're almost vertical. That's the kind of exponential growth that is taking place. And also the fact that sea space is not for navies alone, but for, and that's the reason why India, we set up the National Maritime Security Coordinator. He's sitting here. His aim was to, synergize all the stakeholders in the maritime domain. In fact, my organization is not Naval Maritime Foundation, is National Maritime Foundation. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Our next speaker is Vice Admiral Blake Converse, who is currently the Deputy Commander of the US Pacific Fleet, an experienced and accomplished nuclear submarine officer. He served on several SSNs, commanded an SSBN, and commanded a submarine squadron. You'll be happy to know that you are in Vizag, which is the home of Indian submarine arm, Blake. Ashore, he's been a course instructor for prospective commanding officers at Naval Reactors Headquarters and as Chief of Staff to the Commander US Submarine Force, among several other appointments. As a flag officer, he served as Director Joint and Fleet Operations N3, the US Fleet Forces Command, and Commander Submarine Group 9, as well as Commander Submarine Force US PAC Fleet, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. So Admiral would speak to us on cooperative regional solutions to rule-based order. The floor is all yours, Blake. I'll fire a warning shots at 13 minutes.
Thank you so much, Admiral Singh. Thank you all. I'd also like to thank Admiral Hari Kumar, Chief of Naval Staff in the Indian Navy, past and present, for coordinating this multilateral naval exercise and comprehensive seminar that has built up to this very impressive Milan 2024. We come together in Milan 2024 in a time that many of us would agree is deeply concerning period for international security and maritime safety. There's been a fundamental shift over the last few decades from a strong and stable international rules-based order to a period in which that order is challenged on many fronts, from illegal and unregulated fishing, weapons trafficking, piracy, to terrorist attacks on merchant shipping in international waters that we're seeing today. And this is not the first time that we've seen that the world has faced such challenges. In fact, if you go back in history, we can point to a number of such periods in which we face similar challenges. If you think back to the Viking raids along the Atlantic and the eastern seaboard of the Atlantic in the 700s and 800s and 900s, those drove those competing nations and sometimes not even nations but tribes to align together to form nations and to align together to build navies, and then to collaborate and develop synergy in order to fight off the Viking threat. And moving forward, if you think of the Mughal and Maratha empires here in the Indian Ocean who were competing and warring at times, they collaborated to protect trade and commerce. And in fact, Our first President of the United States of America, Admiral George Washington, in 1794 formed the United States Navy not to protect our shores, but to protect our commerce because of piracy in the Barbary region in the Mediterranean. That is why we built our first 6 warships. They came in handy for national security later, but they were first built to protect our commerce. Today, once again, we see that the threats in the global maritime commons are available, and from history we know where that solution is found. It is found when like-minded nations come together in the spirit of collaboration, in the spirit of synergy and growth, to form close bonds of friendship, to train and operate together, and to protect the global maritime commons. Now, as Admiral Singh pointed out, I'm a submariner by trade. I've spent most of my career in submarines, and when I started in the submarine force, our training was to be silent. Our training was to operate independently without coordination, communication, or collaboration to achieve our deadly mission. But today, there have been changes in the operational environment that have driven our submarine force to communicate, to collaborate, and coordinate across our joint force and with our partners. And there have been changes in our capabilities, in our weapons platforms and our sensors that have driven us to communicate and collaborate and coordinate with our joint partners and allies in order to be more effective as a submarine force, to leverage the capabilities we have in sea, air, space for targeting, for example. And there have been changes in the threat environment in our adversary that have also driven us to communicate and collaborate. And I think that is a good parallel to the work that we need to do as nations and as navies. We need to come together here and demonstrate a collective commitment to the collaboration, synergy, and growth in the Indo-Pacific region. Collaboration, to collaborate is to commit to the possibility of producing an outcome that is greater than one could have developed on their own. And we have many examples of that in recent months. Last August, alongside India and 18 other partner nations, we participated in the Southeast Asia Cooperation and Training Exercise in Singapore. And just last month, India, Australia, Japan, the Republic of Korea, and the United States operated out of Guam and flew together during Sea Dragon to enhance our theater anti-submarine warfare operability. And then later this year, many of these nations will be sailing to the U.S. Pacific Fleet in Hawaii for the MILAN 2024 of the East RIMPAC exercise, where we anticipate India will send ships and air assets, as will many of your navies. We're busy, but not for the sake of being busy. These exercises, which take a lot of effort to plan, are very important, have very important goals and have critical outcomes. Most importantly, developing an interchangeable naval warfighting capability that's prepared to conduct steady-state, high-end, combined missions across the Indo-Pacific to uphold our international rules-based order that we all value, and all nations, and even those nations that are unable to form navies, benefit from. In working together across the global maritime commons, we seek to preserve the following: the sovereignty of all nations, including the maritime sovereignty of their holdings, a respect for the international rule of law and international norms. We seek individual rights and liberties. We seek to adhere to shared values and freedoms. We seek to support and defend each other, to provide open access to the seas, the skies, and even the outer space, and to engage in fair and open commerce. I offer that these efforts are not new, but bear empathetic repeating every day. Number one, protection and preservation of our existing international rules-based order and the freedom of our global maritime commons. Nations must be able to fly, sail, and operate everywhere international rule allows, even those nations without a strong naval capability. And to achieve this, we must continue to establish, enhance, and strengthen our networks of allies and partners. Number two, I firmly believe, associated with allies and partners, that one of our key advantages that our security challengers do not possess is our network of strong alliances and partnerships. Nations that recognize that their own clear stake in sustaining and strengthening the functioning of the global order is to bring together their people for security and prosperity. What we know from our ongoing collaboration is that when we must not only exercise, but we must operate together. And remember that international challenges require collective actions. Wisely, we are doing this routinely towards the greater goal of global peace and security. We've already seen the successes of specific initiatives and maritime partnerships, including the Combined Maritime Force, which India and many countries here today are part of, and the recently established Operation Prosperity Guardian. Both exist to uphold the rules-based international order by promoting security, stability, and prosperity across some of the most important shipping lanes. In terms of growth, the importance of the Indo-Pacific region cannot be emphasized enough. The region is home to more than half of our world's people and drives as much as 2/3 of our global economic growth. The Indo-Pacific includes the world's 3 largest democracies, our 3 largest economies, and 7 of the 10 largest militaries. For those reasons and many others, more members of our United States military are stationed in the Indo-Pacific region than anywhere else outside of the continental United States. And the urgency in our shared mission is to preserve the status quo order of free and sovereign nations and deter countries and actions that would upend our current system. This system has benefited all of us for over 80 years. 60% of the world has been lifted out of poverty, and in fact lifts 160,000 human beings out of poverty each and every day. We will continue enhancing our capabilities and improving our coordination with allies and partners. And that work that we do together plays a crucial part in our ability to deter conflict, enabling all of us to flourish by exercising our sovereign rights in the maritime domain in accordance with international law. That said, we do not demand binary choices between competing systems. Instead, by strengthening individual sovereignty, by capacity building among us, and maritime domain awareness, we believe that most nations will choose to work together constructively to achieve an order that is shared by all and imposed by none. Presence matters. Through collective presence of capable and like-minded navies in the region, we will foundationally and continually say to those who attempt to expand international rules order that today is not the day. Tomorrow's not the day either, and there's no day in the future that it's acceptable to upend our current system. We must commit to a steady presence and continued information sharing initiatives as we build a common maritime picture of potential threats and as we build plans, strategies, and actions to combat them together. In conclusion, together with our joint and combined partners in operations and exercises, we're positioned to deny and defend across all domains any attempts to break the peace accorded by the rules-based international order. And together we can face common threats in the 21st century. Thank you to the Indian Navy for the invitation for me to speak here. It's great to be here with you all. And then I'll stand by for questions after the speakers have concluded. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral. You didn't give me the opportunity. I guess for a submariner, warning shot doesn't matter. You didn't give me the opportunity to fire the warning shot. Thank you. Very interesting points about how navies were built for protection of national commerce. Of course, today the commerce itself is so complicated and complex with flags of convenience, flag states, the kind of cargo which goes from one place to 10 other destinations via transshipment port. You have complexities of crewing, you have multiple nationalities. So it sort of makes it even more important that we collaborate. And I think that message has come out very clear in your talk. And also the fact that presence matters, and it takes a lot of bandwidth out of a Navy to be present everywhere, and that's again very important that we collaborate. So thank you for spreading this message. Our third speaker is Vice Admiral Akito Saito. He took over his present assignment as Commander-in-Chief Self-Defense Fleet, JMSDF, in 2022. Prior to that, he was the Vice Chief of Staff at the Maritime Staff Office, and before that, the Commander Fleet Escort Force. Amongst his several distinguished appointments, he's been the Director General of Operations and Plans, the Chief of Staff, Commander Fleet Escort Force. He's also commanded the destroyer Isoyuki. Admiral, it's such a pleasure to have you with us in Vizag. And Saito-san will speak to us on the importance of cooperation in modern maritime security. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. The respectful Chief of Navy, flag officers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, namaskar, namaste. I'm Vice Admiral Saito, Commander-in-Chief of the Self-Defense Fleet, Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude for giving me an opportunity to deliver a speech in the occasion of such a wonderful naval event. It is a tribute to the great hospitality shown by Admiral Hari Kumar, Chief of Naval Staff, and Vice Admiral Rajesh Pandehakar, my classmate in Naval War College in Newport, in the successful hosting of this major international conference with many navies participating. In the present security environment with complexity and globalization, one nation alone cannot maintain or improve maritime security on its own. And this is evident from the fact that many navies and maritime-related organizations present would have been joining some maritime community. Today, I will be giving a speech on the theme of the importance of cooperation in modern maritime security and discuss challenges and threats to maritime security and ways to address them. The Indo-Pacific region, home to many of the participants here, is the center of the world growth and vitality, and accounts for more than half of the world population, representing approximately 60% of the global GDP. For many countries, stable maritime commerce is a lifeline for countries' activities, and securing opportunities of use of sea remains essential for economic development. Further, the key to prosperity is stable use of sea line communication. The significance of safe sea as such free and open seas is increasingly growing. However, this region faces a variety of security challenges, with many conflicts arising from the diversity of cultural, political belief. Also, an universal challenges, climate change causes a number of massive disasters in the region, leading to growth of tendency natural disasters. In addition, events undertaken by non-state regional actors such as IUU fishing, piracy, smuggling, terrorism, and marine pollution pose a serious threat to maritime order in the region, resulting that it is no exaggeration to say that it is already impossible for any single nation to deal with them. The idea proposed to cope with these threats and challenges and to realize the peace and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific Ocean as global common is a free and open Indo-Pacific, or HOIP. HOIP was first put forward in 2007 by the then Japan Prime Minister Mr. Abe Shinzo at the Parliament of the Republic of India, and the concept was unveiled in his keynote address at the 6th Tokyo International Conference on Africa Development in 2016. His speech advocated the ideology aiming to foster regional stability and prosperity by improving connectivity between Asia, which is experiencing a remarkable growth, and Africa, where possibilities abound through a free and open Indo-Pacific region. Furthermore, last March, at the Indo Council of World Affairs, the Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Kishida Fumio, announced a vision called Our HOIP, which is a further developed vision of HOIP. This new vision focuses on enhancing connectivity of the Indo-Pacific region, fostering the region into a place that values freedom, the rule of law, and makes it prosperous, along with respect for diversity, inclusiveness, and openness. The Indo-Pacific region is at the core of the world vitality, encompassing half of the world population. Therefore, it is crucial for us to secure peace and prosperity of the region by making this region as a free and open global commons. Cooperation between countries is essential to realize HOIP, and maritime communities become an important factor to enhance cooperation. By strengthening cooperation between countries through maritime communities, we will be able to together address challenges. In the complex security environment we see today, maritime communities should make concerted efforts to realize the common goal, free and open oceans. I would like to suggest 2 ways to promote cooperation of maritime communities. The first is to reinforce the cooperation within maritime communities. The role of each community has become extensive over the years due to globalization and instability of the maritime security environment. Therefore, I believe that the key is cooperation and collaboration among nations joining these communities. The second way is to enhance organic cooperation between maritime communities. Exchanging personnel, sharing information, and cooperating with each other will enable maritime communities to enhance each strength and build more reassuring maritime communities. Sharing of code of unplanned encounter at sea, or CUEs, would be one of the good examples of such collaboration. The code is fruit brought by collaboration of a lot of countries joining WPNS, including India, Japan, and many of other countries present, and it was introduced at IONS leading to a common sense to avoid chances of unplanned incident at sea between navies. Confirming the outcome of discussions and sharing the way forward among maritime communities will improve regional security environment and lead to realize of hope. Needless to say, MILAN itself, a multilateral naval exercise standing with nearly 30 years of history, also plays an important role in improving cooperation among these maritime communities and realizing hope. Let me share with you the JMSDF commitment to realization of stronger maritime communities, which I mentioned earlier. In order to enhance cooperation within maritime communities, the JMSDF has been deploying units as Indo-Pacific deployment centered upon helicopter destroyers in the Pacific and Indian Ocean since 2017. We are also planning to dispatch assets widely to Indo-Pacific region this year and provide support to improve capability of neighboring countries through conducting high-end multilateral exercise and training with maritime police and Coast Guard and other opportunities such as Pacific Partnership. Moreover, under the WPNS framework, the JMSDA hosts a shipwright program for young officers and the WPNS STEP for officers every year. To contribute to peace and stability of Indo-Pacific, the JMSDF not only deploys assets and personnel on a regular basis, but also holds exchange with navies in the region and beyond to support improving capability to tackle common issues. In addition to the JMSDF, Japan continues to conduct these activities in cooperation with the Japan Coast Guard and other organizations to build capability that are most necessary for the navies in the region. Amid security environment with growing complexity, cooperation among maritime community is imperative to maintain maritime order, which is the basis for maintaining and developing maritime economy. The theme of this event, collaboration, synergy, growth, is exactly the basis for stable use of sea. The JMSDF is committed to proactive contribution to maintain and strengthening maritime order and achieving a free and open Indo-Pacific, continuously working close with its ally and like-minded partners. Again, I would like to extend my gratitude for this opportunity to deliver my speech. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Arigato, Saito-san. Very interesting that the FOIP saw the potential of improving connectivity between Asia and growth in Africa as its driver. That's an interesting perspective because I found whenever I have moved around, I found that many nations have a very high regard for Japan and the way they have assisted in their growth, and not with much fanfare and song and dance, but in the right way. And I think when you interact with countries around, it's the language of development that actually resonates more than the language of contestation. This is true for countries in the region, and also when we discuss with our own national governments, when we talk the language of development, it resonates a little more. So thank you so much for your. Our final speaker is Vice Admiral Emmanuel Slas. He's the Joint Commander of the French forces deployed in the Indian Ocean, Joint Commander of the French Forces stationed in the UAE and the IMASO Op Commander. I hope I've got this right. He's joined the Navy in 1993 as part of his national service, and over the last 28 years in service, 18 years have been dedicated solely to operations on board warships. And as a result of that, he served on a number of destroyers as an above water specialist, executive officer, and commanding officer. He's taken part in several important operations in the Adriatic, Mediterranean, Caribbean Sea, Southeast Asia, Indian Ocean, and the Gulf. So the Admiral would speak to us on maritime information sharing, a step towards collective awareness and ability to act together at sea. All yours, Admiral.
Thank you very much, Admiral. I'd like also to thank Admiral Hari Kumar for this great Milan events, and of course to my special thanks to Vice Admiral Rajesh Pendarkar, my friend, for hosting us here in such a great manner. So I'm commanding the French forces in the Indian Ocean region, which is of course a region that is of high concern for France, since we have roughly 8 million of square kilometers of exclusive economic zone, either in the western part of the Indian Ocean and also around the French Polynesia. So we are a nation of the Indo-Pacific as such. So I really appreciate the previous discussion with my friends here. It was great to listen to you, Dr. Brugger, in the way that you presented what is happening in the at sea in general. But we can have a kind of vision a little bit more dedicated to the Indian Ocean and notably the western parts of it. So we have on the western part of the Indian Ocean a real increase of the frequency and the gravity. I would say the fact that events are coming more and more serious. I will not talk about the Red Sea because we are more in a situation of confrontation there at this very moment, and some of us are fighting to maintain the freedom of navigation through those very important straits for the global economy and for the developments of all the nations. So I will rather more focus on the normal activity of the Indian Ocean, if I could say so, normal, that is, however, carrying issues with regard to halieutic reserves. There is an increase of illegal fishing in the Western Indian Ocean with some nation and notably one that is really harvesting the Indian Ocean in terms of fishery, notably in international waters. There is the issue of pollutions, oil spill, various illegal traffics that are not currently tackled, despite the fact that there is a rule-based order and some laws that are defined to fight against those illegal traffics. There are some migrants issues, climate change, real increase in pleasure craft presence, etc., etc. So the previous presentation were dealing with the importance of collaboration. But how do we effectively collaborate at sea? So there is this very important issue to develop the ability to exchange information. And our analysis, our conclusion is that if I take the threat cup that was presented by Professor Brugger, I think it's much easier to start to cooperate and exchange information with regards to the right part of the cup. That is, with issues that are presented here, for instance. I would say low hands activities, not purely militaries, but activities that concerns us as nation of the Indian Ocean, to preserve our ocean, to preserve the halieutics reserves, to preserve from pollution, to preserve from illegal traffics. And those are the thematics we should try to cooperate on. But to do this, we have to have the possibility to exchange informations. And this is why I'm telling that we need to cooperate on those issues, because there are no specifically military issues. They are not of a very high interest. I would mean this is not in national interest, but this is interest that we as nation of the Indian Ocean, we do share. And it's much easier to cooperate on this than only on very high-hand stuff. And each of the nations of the Indian Ocean has the ability to understand and to act in its own EEZ, at least, sometimes a little bit further. But it's not always the case. Of course, India is for instance, an ocean-going navy, carrier-capable, but it's not the case of all the navies of the Indian Ocean. And however, we need to be able to exchange informations so that all together we are then much more capable of exchanging and protecting the Indian Ocean. And there are some means of communication that exist to share informations. There are lots of possibilities to exchange information through internet-capable applications that allows us to exchange maps, to exchange documents, and to work with a chat, just like our son and daughters are talking. With a minimum of protections, I don't mean that there is no protection, but with the required level of protection that then allow everybody, every nation, every maritime security center to be connected. Because it's easy, it works on the internet with a little crypto. And also there are some solutions that can be used on board ships with low bandwidth, with only Inmarsat solutions. Those solutions exist. And we recently experienced one of those solutions. We were 23 nations working on various thematics. We did this from the Seychelles, and it was an activity that my team organized. We worked on 4 scenarios to make sure that regionally nations were able to organize themselves and to coordinate on very simple but really important subjects. So, for instance, there were a scenario with a hurricane that some nations had to deal with in the southwest, with a big oil spill at the junction of the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Oman, with a big engine fire on a cruise ships in the Gulf of Bengal, and with a scenario of a bulk carrier with liquefaction of cargo on the northwest of Australia. And we did it. And with the remote center that we had installed in the Seychelles, we were able to connect all the maritime security centers of the nations that were concerned. And it worked very well. So I am not here to support one specific solution, because there are many. And I am extremely pleased, Admiral, to see that Nishar is now ready to work from India. And I think that it's a great solution to have this possibility to communicate. I understand Nishar more as a system that is dedicated to work from ships, whereas we also need to have systems that are able to connect maritime security centers. And we don't need to have over big computers to do this. But we have to be committed to do it, because it's easy, and some solution exists. And there is the possibility to segregate the information so that only countries of a dedicated region would be able to share the information or not. But we have to do it to preserve the Indian Ocean and to tackle those things that are important, but that are, however, easy to tackle. Illegal trafficking, narcotics issue that is a real wave since the COVID in the whole region. To preserve our refrigerator, because currently someone is stealing in our refrigerator in the Indian Ocean. And we have to do it. So we have to be committed to make sure that our Maritime Security Center can exchange information. I say can. I don't say have to. So everyone is mastering its own information. But we have to do it, and we can do it. So this was my message, and you can be certain that I will stay committed from my staff to this, because this is also my responsibility to take my part of the burden of the protections of the Indian Ocean and much further, either on the western part or in the Gulf of Bengal. And we can do it. We've done it. We've demonstrated it. And I'm happy to see that also India is extremely committed with Nishar to provide a solution that will be able to take a part of the task, not all, but take the part of the task, notably between the ships. Thank you very much.
Merci. Thank you for your talk, and especially the Indian Navy is very thankful to the French Navy for having sent a very experienced ILO when we set up the IFC IO. Is he here? Okay. So thank you so much. Also, I think the IPMDA, which is the Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness Partnership on Maritime Domain Awareness, is something that we must put into action quickly, that's my view, and resolve the software issues as fast as possible. I saw one of your slides and I was curious to know, you included the maritime flow, you also included the air flow. I know the Air Force officers are very delighted to see that, but I was curious to know what is the rationale. You can use the
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yes, it works. Fine. First, I mentioned the airflow because I'm a joint commander. And so I have to assume to be a joint commander, so I'm not a Navy officer. And also, it is because it's the truth. The northwest of the Indian Ocean is a great connection between Asia and for instance, and Europe. It's the case with all the maritime traffic that goes from Malacca to Suez. So Malacca is 80,000 ships a year. That means a ship every 6 minutes. So it's the density of a metro. So when you open your eyes from the Malacca Strait with a glimpse of an eye, you can see 20 or 30 ships at the minimum. And normally, in normal times, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is 20 to 25,000. So that means a ship every 20 minutes or so. So it has dwindled since the Houthis are trying to disrupt the maritime traffics. But some of the navies are committed to try to maintain the freedom of navigation, which is linked to the rule-based order. And also, there is this air traffic that goes from Asia also to Europe. And everything is, there is a big hub in the north of the Indian Ocean. So we have a kind of double hub, double highway, maritime and air. So this is extremely important. I hope I answer your question.
Thank you so much. So now we'll open up the house for question answers. We've got about 34 minutes. So 30 minutes of Q&A, and the last 4 minutes I'll ask the speakers to speak for a minute each on their thoughts. The procedure is that anyone wishes to ask a question, please raise your hand, and once you've given the mic, please state your name and the country, and who the question is addressed to. And kindly keep your questions to one and try and keep it short. So we are ready to take on question answers. Yeah, Manmeet.
Morning, sir. My question is directed to Dr. Kristen. Thank you for your speech, sir. I'm Commodore Manmeet Singh Khurana, Commodore Foreign Corporation from Indian Navy. So, Admiral Salars just mentioned that IUU fishing in international waters area beyond national jurisdiction is a cause of concern in Western Indian Ocean region. And there are hardly any regulatory legal frameworks to prevent that. So, what role academia is playing? And how do you think it is panning out? Will we be able to tackle this issue outside EEZ, the IUU fishing which is done? That's leading to a lot of problems. Thank you, sir.
Christian, did you ask? Who did you address it to, Professor?
Dr. Kristen.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for the question. The problem of IUU fishing, or what we sometimes also call fishery crimes, is quite obviously not only about biological resources, but illegal fishing is also linked to various other blue crimes. Illegal fishing is often linked to the smuggling of narcotics, but also fishing fleets quite obviously have been used for coercive purposes in the past. So it is a major challenge that we should all be aware of. Fish stocks dramatically are in decline. Some pessimists even say we should not worry about illegal fishing because there's not much fish left. But I think that is pushing it a little bit too far. Now, how do we address that? The first layer, quite obviously, are port-state agreements. And here in particular, the FAO port-state agreement, and that basically implies that we carefully inspect what vessels enter actually into ports, and that we also encourage the small island states to actually sign the port-state measure agreement. It's absolutely shocking how few of them have actually signed it, although fisheries is often a key part of their economy. So perhaps here we can make more efforts, and that includes Seychelles, that includes Mauritius, and so on. Flag state laws, quite obviously. Here we are back to the problem of flags of convenience are vital in this. Last but not least, I think we have not really started probably thinking about what the implications of the new high seas treaties, the BB&J treaty, will be for maritime security. Quite obviously, this is all in the developing phase. It was concluded last year. It will take a number of years until the treaty will get ratified. But very soon we are going to have a new institution for the ocean that aims to set new rules to protect biodiversity on the high seas. Who is going to enforce those rules? How will these rules look like? Will it also open up new forms of exploitation, wind farms on the high seas? Again, who protects them? These are all kind of like very pressing open questions that we should ask right now. And quite obviously, IUU fishing and the fight against it is part of it. And as a very last point, in just connecting it to the earlier debate, I think what is currently happening in the maritime domain awareness space to address IUU fishing, including by private companies, is absolutely fascinating. And there's one big takeaway point for the MDA centers, which is the need to actually much stronger feature in weather data, feature in environmental data, such as the behavior of fish stocks, but also climate change predictions into the MDA data portal. I think that will do a lot to improve our system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Somebody had raised a hand behind Mandi. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. I'm Commander Shyam Prasad, Indian Navy. I'm Staff Officer to the Chief of Personnel. My question is an extension of what Commodore Khurana has asked and what Dr. Christian Buger has answered. The question is again directed to Dr. Christian Buger. So talking of the legal framework and talking of the maritime infrastructure and the threats and the need for collaboration, is it time for us to actually enable navies by incorporating some amendments in the UNCLOS to protect this infrastructure under the provisions of UNCLOS?
Quite obviously, the question of how does the law of the sea feature into critical maritime infrastructure is absolutely vital. It turns out that we actually have an amazing setup of laws to do critical infrastructure protection, but that is largely in the framework of IMO convention and conventions, and here it's in particular the SUA convention, as well as the ISPS, the International Ship and Port Security Code, which also apply to platforms. Right? This is often not recognized and used in that way. So in many ways, the law is already there. We don't have to look into UNCLOS straightforwardly. But quite obviously, there's also some tricky situations and gaps, and that, for instance, includes the question of the legal status of underwater infrastructures in the area, so seafloor of the high seas. And here we are primarily talking about subsea data cables, but quite obviously we're also talking about future electricity cables. For instance, the planned cable between Australia and Singapore will go through the area, through international waters. There, the legal status is fundamentally unclear. There are other open questions, including whether floating wind farms are actually ships or platforms, also not clear in UNCLOS. But none of this actually requires to kind of like to challenge UNCLOS in any kind of way, because it can be solved through the IMO and all the other treaty frameworks that we actually have. Let's not forget, the law of the sea is not only UNCLOS, but also UNCLOS. UNCLOS, yes, is the foundation, the constitution, but there's quite a other series of conventions that that can be used in that particular kind of way.
Yes, please. And then the lady there. And then the other lady there. Yeah. Okay.
Sir, I'm Captain Subrat Maku, Indian Navy. CEO Jyoti. Sir, we have been discussing about cooperation, collaboration, and synergy. Just want to put it mathematically. Collaboration probably would mean 1 plus 1 is equal to, cooperation would mean 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Collaboration would be 1 and 1 is equal to 11. And synergy would be 1 raised by infinity. That would be the effect which will come for synergized operation. Having said that, we realize that the synergy is a need of the hour because the navies have that much bandwidth only, because of which they are stretched. It is also brought out in Geoffrey Till in his book that there is a requirement for nations to commit toward maritime security operations. The challenges which we see, which have been discussed, inherently commit all navies towards MSOs. How do we therefore now redesign or rebalance our navies primarily towards MSO, at the same time retaining our core competence and professional warfighting capability? The question is open for panelists.
So I want to repeat your question to ensure I understand it, and if you could nod and say yes. So how do we execute our maritime security objectives synergistically with competing national security interests and limited, national resources and the diversity of missions our navies are faced with? Is that check? So obviously this is a question that each nation is going to have to address individually. But what I will say is that despite our competing national security interests, I think that there are aligned elements that we can all get behind that benefit all nations, and in fact benefit nations that don't have much capacity at all for global navies. And I think that for those of us that do have navies that operate on the high seas and do have navies that operate globally, we have a moral commitment to take some risk and to conduct operations with our partners and with those nations that we don't necessarily share tight partnerships with, so that we can protect the global commons and so that we can fight things like illegal and unregulated fishing and weapons trafficking. And one piece of that is, perhaps assuming some risk in other areas so that you deploy those forces, assuming some risk to political challenges you may face at home by interfacing and operating with countries that you would normally not operate with, and by assuming some technical risk by developing information sharing capabilities and being willing to make sure that those nations, those navies, can communicate effectively with you, and those maritime domain awareness sites have the ability to interoperate. I think by approaching it from that perspective, we are much more likely to succeed, and we are much more likely to develop relationships that will allow us to address new issues as they arise.
So, if you read the Indo-Pacific strategies of various nations, a lot of them have enunciated. You will see this subject of the US has very clearly said that they want friends and allies. So these are all expressions of trying to get synergy into operations. So they are available, and if you read the Indo-Pacific strategy, our own strategy of Sagar and the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative is exactly the same story of getting synergies, and it is in a way a national security objective.
Yes, if I may, Admiral, just add that if we try to effectively tackle the issues with a kind of bottom-up approach, I mean, try to tackling the issues of illegal traffickings, pollutions, IUU fishing, we will build trust in a progressive manner. So one has to be committed first, okay? And I can say that I am committed for that. But we have to effectively to take the risk to share information on those subject of there is no real risk in sharing this kind of information about pollutions, about the behavior of some fishermen, etc. So we have to assume this little level of risk to build trust and then to progress, so that we will be more effective and more rational as we climb towards the high-hands issues. And that will make our assets more efficient at sea, as we will be able effectively to share the burden. So share information between maritime security centers and make sure that also at sea we're able to coordinate with low bandwidth system, low security, and it works. And then we will progress. This is my real belief.
Thank you, Admiral. The lady there.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Pooja Bhatt. I study maritime security governance issues. Thank you, Indian Navy and ENC, for inviting scholars for this conference. We generally don't get to otherwise hear these viewpoints. And also thank you for the panel, where we have senior officers and also the academia on the panel. So my question is open to all here. While I concur with Professor Buger's assertion that critical maritime infrastructure should be, there should be Navy's role into it. I would ask the senior naval officers here that what is the scope of navies in these kind of infrastructure, because such infrastructures are generally owned by MNCs, conglomerates, and they have their own stakes. I don't know how much they would be agreeing to having military intervention to it. So I think that is the murky waters we might be entering when we talk about collaborating on critical maritime infrastructure. So I would want to know your viewpoints on that. Thank you.
Sorry, Pooja, I didn't recognize you from here. So we could start from this end. Each one of you could take on this particular question. How are the navies getting involved in the protection of critical maritime infrastructure? Is that the question? Yeah. So you could.
Well, the maps and the geography talks first. And of course, there are several maritime spaces from which what Navy can do. Now, what you can do in high sea with the area with 5,000 meters of depth, and what can be done close to the shore is not of the same nature, for sure. And I do think that effectively the way Dr. Brugger has presented the way that human activities is evolving at sea is really interesting, in the way that there are more and more infrastructures, and then probably navies and state capabilities are behind the development of commercial activities. So today, 99% of the information is passing through optical fibers that is laid on the sea. So are we able to monitor the actions of some on those cables? The answer is a bit, but only a bit. So your question is very broad. It goes also with the previous one, that is related to that send the message of, does the activities is regulated enough? Do we have to work on this issue? And the answer is yes. And what is the tendency? I would say that I'm a bit optimistic, not only by nature, but also because I've been able to see that with regards, for instance, with the issue of IUU, things are starting to move. So still, however, in high sea, everybody can do almost whatever he wants. But the idea to regulate a little bit more, to preserve the resource for our sons and daughters, is moving in the right direction. So I'm quite confident onto this. But as it has been said, nations with their capabilities, should it be with navies or other services, are for sure behind the economical developments and the use of sea.
Thank you very much for your question. I would like to answer in Japanese. I'm sorry to use my translator. 海洋の安定のためには各海軍が協力する必要がありますけれども、一方で各海軍は非常に忙しい状況です。
So, in order to stabilize the ocean as our global commons, each of our partner countries need to cooperate with each other. However, I understand each of our partner navies are very busy because we need to respond to many situations.
さらに各海軍が法的にできる範囲というものはそれぞれの国によって違いますので、一緒にコラボレーションするのも難しい部分もあります。
In addition, the laws and regulations are different depending on each country. So we have some kind of limitations for us to cooperate with each other in our operation.
しかしこういったミランとかその他の多国間訓練で各国が集まってそれで意見交換をするあるいは洋上で活動するということが非常に重要だと思います。
So under such circumstances, on the occasion of this kind of multilateral exercises such as Milan, participating countries need to collaborate and cooperate with each other on the harbor and at sea in both locations.
その訓練をやることによって各国ができることあるいはその各国のビークルの能力というのをお互いが把握してその総合力で対応する必要があると思っております。
Through this kind of exercise, multilateral exercise, we each other need to understand what each of our partner countries can do and what kind of capability each vehicles of each country have, so that we can cooperate more closely to respond to the contingencies and in other situations.
Thank you. I'm going to take a shot at this one as well. And I will say that, obviously we are challenged to some extent on the high seas by limited international sanction for, what we would call military action to protect critical infrastructure on the sea, below the sea. But I will say that we're not powerless, and there's a number of elements that we can do today, even as we work in the long term on additional legal authorities and justification to take more progressive action. And one piece of that is education among all the nations that border the sea, and especially among those nations that have critical infrastructure or that use critical infrastructure. They see the importance of it, and they're willing to collaborate and partner so that we can jointly protect it. And then the second piece is what Emmanuel and Seiro-san mentioned today, and that is the collaboration and information sharing among all of us so we can develop a common operating picture of the maritime domain of the maritime domain, so that we can understand those areas which were at threat, whether it be for our critical infrastructure, our undersea cables, or even illegal fishing or trafficking. But identifying the threat and having a common shared understanding of it among a large group of like-minded partners is important. And then that enables the next step. And one of the most powerful weapons that we have today is not carried on our ships or our submarines or aircraft. It's in the information domain. And as Emmanuel put it yesterday when we were chatting and conspiring for this, it is about naming and shaming, identifying publicly in which a large group of like-minded nations who are opposed to these actions, and identify through maritime domain awareness illegal or unregulated fishing in areas that shouldn't be happening, or some potential operations that may be affecting our undersea cables. And so now we know it, we can collect that evidence, and then we can publicly shame those activities that are doing that. And if we get the large number of that can be a very effective weapon against nation states to prevent them from doing that. And then finally, in some of these things, we need to develop additional maritime capabilities through our Navy, our Coast Guard, our other assets to prevent this and to detect it. And some of those capabilities don't exist, or some of those capabilities exist in very rarefied forms, especially in the undersea, to monitor and protect undersea cables and infrastructure. Thank you.
Would you?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing us back to that part of the discussion. Three quick points. The first one is infrastructure is what connects us. We all depend on ocean infrastructures, and this is hence a shared task for any kind of navy to care and protect for these infrastructures. And just one example, I found it absolutely shocking when the Houthis actually threatens the most vital global underwater sea cable connection in the Red Sea, where almost all of the traffic between Europe and Asia flows to an artery of the global internet. And this is a completely different game than attacking a ship here or there, where you have an alternative shipping route. This is not kind of like to downplay this, but kind of like there should have been a clear global signal towards the Houthi at that point of time saying, okay, this is the red line. This is the global infrastructure that we all depend on. I would also like to re-echo the importance of skills and training. Ask yourself whether your staff is equipped to do boardings of platforms such as wind farms and oil farms. Ask yourself how well every navigator actually knows where the cables are. So these are absolutely vital questions. And then last but not least, it is also about asking yourself what are the forms of collaboration with the broader infrastructure industry. Counter-piracy was all about collaborating closely with the shipping industry. That was one of the big lessons. You cannot fight pirates without the shipping industry. But there's a broader lesson, and that is you cannot protect infrastructure without the infrastructure industry. And that fundamentally is telecommunication and energy, and I think there is much need to actually strengthen that collaboration with the industry in whatever form.
Thank you so much. So Chibi, last two questions, yours and
thank you, Chair. Hello, good morning. My name is Dr. Chimi Yudun. I'm a research fellow at the National Maritime Foundation. My question is to Professor Guger. I would like to know how integration of nature-based solution, which is known as the one of most cost-effective solution, into climate change goals and blue economy to enhance the sustainable utilization of oceans and to build resilience of critical maritime infrastructure, which we see absent in most of the blue economy policy goals. And I also would like to know how navies can play a great role in it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is quite obviously a big question, and one of the challenges here is how do we relate naval strategy to both maritime security and blue economy. Navies are stretched in resources, this we all know. And I think one of the answers is actually to have better integrated maritime policies on both a national level, and here I'm mainly talking about marine spatial planning. The majority of marine spatial planning processes do not fully consider law enforcement and naval capabilities, so that is one answer. But also to do so on a regional level. So in many ways, it's fascinating what is currently happening in the North Sea, where you have kind of like increasingly the attempt to do spatial planning on a regional level, but also to enable new forms of collaboration. So the North Sea states, for instance, just signed a new joint declaration on information sharing over critical infrastructure protection. So a lot of this can be on the level of regional lease, sometimes using the regional seas conventions that we have for many parts of the world, legally binding treaties on marine pollution and the development of coastal communities. They are already there, some of them since the 1970s. So these are all kind of like means of how to develop this. And in December, I was delighted to be able to attend IONS, the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, and I was super happy to hear that, for instance, the French Navy had been kind of like leading the agenda on environmental security at sea. How do navies actually contribute to environmental protection and the blue economy? And the current presidency, the Thai Navy, lifted the blue economy up and put it more in the center. And these are all vital discussions in terms of how do we actually govern, secure, and care for the oceans. That is in the end why we're all here, and this is what connects all of us.
Yeah, the last question. Either Mike, then.
And I want to ask one question, and sessional speaker Faisal Admiral Craig Covens, Deputy Commander, United States. So I'm talking about one question. I'm talking about Somalia. In the sea Somalia, a large amount of rubbish is always dumped, and we also see many dead fish approaching the shore of Somalia. So do we have that information? We have seen in Somalia and many fish deaths coming to beaches, and I don't know where it came from, those fish, and many so damaged are we see, like plastics, papers in Somalia Sea. So can anyone give can anyone give me what is going on in Indian Pacific Ocean? Because the dumps came from the side of Indian Oceans, and I don't know where it came from, but we see that Somalia is facing the Indian Ocean. So the dumps came from that side, and anyone can give me full information about the dumps and fish that came from Somali beaches.
You were involved in protection of. Were you involved in that area? Didn't follow. You basically want to know about information on movement of fish in that area?
Yes, because we see many dead fish coming from the dead fish, and
anyone who's confident enough to answer. Anyone in the audience who can? You were saying something.
Sir, I think he's asking. So I think he's asking that a lot of dead fish and plastics are floating there to Somalia, and that is what probably has led to their local militia going out to defend their waters to prevent IUU, and that has eventually led to what we see the resurgence in piracy. What we saw in 2008, and now again it is coming. So that is, he's linking up the two. So coming back to summing up of discussions, that it is very important to regulate IUU in these areas, where especially the states which don't have much capacity to regulate their own EEZ.
Actually, the root of the problem lies in several factors, whether it's on land or where it was, unchecked IUU fishing in the territorial seas. So there's the root of the problem lies in several things, not only centered around one issue. It's a very complex issue, and again, piracy has linkages with narco-terrorism and a whole lot of other activities. So thank you for your question. If anyone has a better answer, take it up.
No, I don't have an answer, but I have, if we take all the questions, almost each of the questions were related also to IUU this morning. And of course, and I'm really understanding your preoccupation, sir. as it's also a preoccupation that we have for our resources in our exclusive economic zone. So this is our common responsibility now to work on the issue of IUU, and I mean, you know, when we say IUU, we are talking about what is going on inside EEZ. But we also have, and mostly have to tackle what is going on in international waters. That are areas that are that have very low regulation. And some are taking benefits of this very low regulation. But this is the kind of bottom line of the discussion we had this morning, is that IUU is a really important subject, and if we want to try to start to tackle it, we have to share information. So it has to be a positive démarche of every and each of us to effectively to work on this issue that we are all concerned by, neighboring nations of the Indian Ocean, and it's probably the same on the around South America, etc. So there is no risk in sharing information about this subject, and we are certain that it could be beneficial for the neighboring nations. And I really do thank you for raising again this this issue, and we can do it, but we have to be committed to share information.
So I think we've lost this opportunity for last remarks because it's already past our deadline. Very rightly put, and we see what is happening in the northwest Arabian Sea, where the squid fishing is going on and unchecked and close to the EZ of Oman. So anyway, I would, I'm sure you all have enjoyed this panel discussion. I just want you to please appreciate the speakers in the customary fashion. Thank you so much.
Information sharing. May I request the delegates to be please seated. We would like to felicitate you all, sir. Thank you, sir. Information sharing indeed is a key solution as put forward by Vice Admiral Emmanuel Slas for effectively utilizing our respective assets in the high seas, and most importantly, building trust among us. And trust is probably the only ingredient that is required for building the collaboration, cohesion, and synergy that we have been talking about. Thank you, sirs, for the insightful and engrossing discussions. May I now request the session chair to please felicitate the panelists of this session. Dr. Christian Byoga. Vice Admiral Blake Converse. Vice Admiral Saito Akira. Vice Admiral Emmanuel Slas. Thank you, sir. May I now request Vice Admiral Sanjay Dev Singh, Flag Officer Commanding in Chief, Western Naval Command, to please come on stage and felicitate the session chair. Thank you, sir. With that, we have come to the end of session 1 of the International Maritime Seminar. I invite you all to join us for tea outside in the lawns. The guests seated in the rows behind and away from the stage are requested to use the central exit, and the other guests and media personnel are requested to use the nearest exit to your left and to your right. May I also remind you that the high tea would be followed by the arrival of the Honorable Vice President of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankad, at 1130 hours, and a group photography thereafter of the Vice President with the nominated delegates. May I request the others to reassemble and be seated back by 1115 hours. Thank you.
ఎందుకు ఎందుకు మన వినలేదు టీవీ గురించి సాంసద్
Check. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now awaiting the arrival of the Honorable Vice President of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankad. May I request you all to please take your seats. After the end of today's session, I request you all to be seated until the chief guest has left the premises. Thank you. We are now awaiting the arrival of the Vice President of India. May I request all the delegates seated in the gallery to please come downstairs and occupy the chairs right in front of the dais. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Vice President of India. May I request all to continue to stand, and we'll have the national anthem now. You may now please be seated. May I request Admiral R. Hari Kumar, Chief of the Naval Staff, to deliver the welcome address.
Shri Jagdeep Dhankar ji, Honorable Vice President of India, Shri S. Abdul Nazir ji, Honorable Governor of Andhra Pradesh, Vice Admiral Rajesh Pendarkar, Flag Officer Commanding in Chief, Eastern Naval Command, former Chief of Navy, Admiral K.B. Singh, heads of navies, heads of delegations, ambassadors, excellencies, flag officers, commanders in chiefs, distinguished guests, commanding officers, officer in charges, academic luminaries, domain experts, colleagues and partners from across the oceans, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to all of you, and namaste. It is indeed an honor and privilege to have India's Honorable Vice President, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar ji, amongst us today. We are immensely grateful to him for having taken time out from his extremely busy schedule to grace this event. And given his sagacity on matters maritime and India's worldview, I'm confident that his presence and guidance would set the tone and tenor for deeper deliberations during the seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, traditionally, as a maritime nation, India has always looked to the seas as a driver of growth and prosperity through collaboration, connectivity, and cultural exchange. This is not something new, it has happened over 5,000 years. Accordingly, our contemporary maritime endeavors too stem from an inclusive approach, a national vision by our Honorable Prime Minister, aptly termed as Sagar, or security and growth for all in the region. It alludes to a participative model which encourages all stakeholders to contribute positively and proactively for the betterment of the oceanic spaces and its littorals as a whole. Do note the terms we have chosen to use, security and growth. We understand that one cannot exist without the other. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the driving force behind getting all our navies together through this forum. After all, you would agree that the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts, especially when dealing with the fathomless expanse of the oceanic spaces, where the tyranny of distance and the occasional wrath of the wind and waves poses significant challenges. So all of us do bring something to the table, be it our geography or location or experience, capability, capacity, expertise, resources, local knowledge, which when harnessed can help us tide over our own individual limitations. So MILAN truly encapsulates this spirit by providing a platform for our countries to converge, converse and collaborate at the global level. From its modest beginnings in 1995, with the participation of just 5 countries, today MILAN has grown into a global configuration of over 50 like-minded maritime nations with an exhaustive and elaborative agenda. So over the course of the event, we will be exchanging notes on operations, administration, personnel, as well as tactics, training and technology. Pertinently, we are doing it in a highly participative manner, with everyone getting an opportunity to voice their views. So this seminar has been particularly stitched together, catering to both macro and micro maritime issues which affect all of us. The aim is to strengthen our mutual understanding by sharing our thoughts, voicing concerns and conveying ideas. All this so that we can find collaborative and mutually reinforcing and supportive solutions to maritime challenges. So in addressing the maritime security challenges, the Indian Navy remains committed to ensuring that a free, open, inclusive and a rules-based order prevails upon the seas. We remain mission deployed in the Indian Ocean region to tackle challenges as the first responder, covering the entire spectrum of military, diplomatic, constabulary and benign missions and tasks. The Indian Navy's affirmative action with the ongoing anti-drone and anti-piracy operations in the Western Indian Ocean region is an example of this approach. We are also committed to helping anyone in distress at sea, irrespective of nationality or the flag of the vessel. So be it fire, flooding, drone attacks, or countering piracy. So as regards maritime cooperation, we hope to be your preferred security partner, and to that end, we remain committed to bond with our friends and partners through the 4 interconnected pillars, that is capacity building, capability enhancement, constructive engagement, and collaborative efforts. So the idea is to supplement and complement each other in our collective endeavor of ensuring that the global commons retain the character of being mare liberum, or free for everyone's legitimate and peaceful use. But we must remember that the oceans do not remain free by default, and they require sustained efforts by nations and navies. So the enthusiasm and energy with which the last few days of MILAN have gone by, you would all agree that we collectively have much to look forward to when operating at sea. So may our concerted efforts at sea pave the way for a world where collaboration triumphs over conflict, synergy guides our actions, and growth is inclusive. So before concluding, I once again thank the Honorable Vice President for being here with us today. The men and women in whites from over 50 nations and navies eagerly await your words of wisdom, sir. So thank you, Shano Varun. May the Ocean Lord be auspicious unto us as we set sail together for a more secure tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now request the Honorable Vice President of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar ji, to deliver the keynote address.
Honorable Governor of Andhra Pradesh, Justice Shri S. Abdul Nazir, Admiral R. Hari Kumar, Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Rajesh Pendarkar, Commander-in-Chief, Eastern Naval Command, Chiefs of Navies, Heads of Delegations, Excellencies, distinguished participants, and audience. Namaskar and greetings to all. I was wondering, keeping in mind what Chief of Naval Staff has kept this rostrum a little higher. He delivered an excellent address. It could have been that side. I am not from your domain. Therefore, I may not be in a position to address the issues with which you grapple day in and day out. I am happy to be with you in Eastern Naval Command, which has played a very crucial role in India's maritime history and earned laurels for the country. I extend warm greetings to all our friends who have come together from several countries to participate in the International Maritime Seminar, MILAN 2024. Those of my friends who are from abroad, MILAN is a Hindi word. MILAN means sublime meeting of mind, heart, and soul. This seminar, I have no doubt, will exemplify the same. Soothing to find that editions of MILAN are continually getting productive and in some ways defining way forward stances. It is one of its kind impactful platform for sharing best practices and expertise, as also a crucible of involved interaction much beyond surface scratching. With modest beginning, in 1995, coming as we do on this day, participation of more than 15 warships or 50 delegations, MILAN is certainly turning out to be a delivery platform for meaningful dialogue and deliberations for participating navies. Friends, disruptive technologies of all kinds have made deep inroads in our lives. We'll have to live with them and content them. These offer both challenges and opportunities. I'm sure there will be an occasion for you all to deliberate on this aspect as well. MILAN 2024 aims to strengthen global cooperation and maritime security, an ever-evolving challenge. Its object is to foster interoperability and understanding between participating navies. This august assemblage of domain experts, and it is a rare occasion, under one roof, domain experts have assembled, is a testament to the shared commitment of nations towards ensuring the much needed maritime safety and security. Proactive collaboration is key, and if I may say so, only key, to shared peace and prosperity. MILAN 24 indeed has an apt theme, partners across oceans. collaboration, synergy, growth. This theme is of contemporaneous relevance, noticing emerging challenges, reflecting the spirit of unity that transcends geographical boundaries. Friends, it is in fitness of things that India, home to 1/6 of humanity and largest functional vibrant democracy on the planet, with rising economy, is playing its due role in catalyzing partnerships, collaboration, synergy across oceans, and issues concerning maritime security. Given the challenges we face, it is imperative for nations to come together, share experiences, and develop collaborative strategies to ensure the safety, security, and sustainability of our oceans. The stakeholders would certainly avail the opportunity of sea exercises that would enhance interoperability, enable exchange of best practices, and will certainly boost confidence of best practices so as to undertake missions together in the future to tackle common challenges. Friends, protection of global supply chains, avoiding deeper regional tensions, and affirmative exploitation of blue economy are global concerns that can no longer be ignored. You are most impactful stakeholders in finding a way forward. Observance of maritime order is quite essential to peace and harmony of the region, as also maintenance of supply chains and promotion of trade and commerce. Oceans have played an important part in India's history right from the time of Indus Valley civilization, going back to thousands of years. Global dependence on the seas for trade and commerce, and which is huge, that involves everyone on the planet. This global dependence necessitates the protection of the seas, lines of communication. Maritime domain is also vital, very vital, I would say, for blue economy. The ancient Indian philosophy emphasizes the interconnectedness of all life and the imperative to work together for greater good. That has been essence of our civilizational ethos, ably reflected during our presidency of G20 that had the motto, one earth, one family, one future. Keeping in mind this very essence, thoughtfully in 2015, as indicated by Chief of Naval Staff, SAGAR, again a Hindi word, an acronym for security and growth for all in the region, was initiated. It emphasizes inclusivity and growth for all. The focus of SAGAR is on concerted cooperative measures for sustainable use of oceans and provides a framework for a safe, secure, and stable maritime domain in the region. Friends, in 2019, at the East Asia Summit, this initiative was further enhanced and elaborated through the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative with a focus on 7 pillars of maritime security, including maritime ecology, maritime resources, capacity building and resource sharing, disaster risk reduction and management, science, technology, and academic cooperation, and trade, connectivity, and maritime transport. Friends, you all will agree these are fundamental to the concept for which you are here. It resonates profoundly with the challenges and opportunities that define our contemporary maritime landscape. Implementing a collaborative strategy is challenging. Varied situations have to be converged. This challenging task is to be achieved, accomplished by your thought process in this seminar. It requires maritime agencies to improve interoperability. On paper looks easy. On seas, it has to be brought about with a lot of deliberation and expertise. Share intelligence and agree on a global rule-based order. I need not indicate to this august assemblage challenge to the global rule-based order is at peak at the moment. Its resolution is unavoidable necessity. This seminar, I am sure, would find a way out. In recent years, friends, we have seen formidable security challenges in the maritime domain, and these have acquired new menacing dimensions having potential to engender peace, not to speak of unsettling supply chains. If you unsettle supply chains, the impact is geometric, cascading on the lives of ordinary people. And therefore, it is, according to me, a prime obligation of the people here to find a sustainable way out so that supply chains are kept intact. Friends, India, our nation, stands at the cusp of remarkable growth. 1/6 of humanity, we are 5th largest global economy, on way to becoming the 3rd largest global economy in next 2-3 years. In terms of purchasing power, we are already number 3 globally. We have set our eyes to be a fully developed nation by 2047. That marks centennial celebrations of our independence. India's maritime strength will be critical to our marathon race to 2047 as a developed nation. Friends, our oceans, rather than separating us, are pathways to connect us. And I would say they are pleasant pathways to connect us. These are vital for global trade, exchange of ideas, and sustenance of life itself. You all have the advantage of seeing life very differently. Those of us who do not venture into the sea like you are deprived of that kind of life which you have the occasion to see. For us who are not part of your domain, it is tourist attraction. For you, it is a challenge. It is a challenge to see that it survives, it sustains. It is imperative, therefore, we approach seas as a shared resource, a resource that is valuable to the planet. Acknowledging our collective responsibility, not only to protect and preserve, but let us help it flourishes and blossoms. This shared past holds immense value to establishing and furthering diplomatic dialogue even today. It is because of the benign nature of the Maritime Connect that one finds great Indian epic of Ramayana continues to be an intrinsic part of the Southeast Asian countries. I have had the occasion to see it. Friends, it is soothing to find that as President of the United Nations Security Council in 2020, India provided dynamic leadership and direction in envisioning a global roadmap for enhancing maritime security that will go a long way in shaping the contours of emerging world order. It was for the first time that the UN Security Council opened debate on enhancing maritime security. A case for international cooperation was held in August 2021, and our visionary Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi presided over it. It was a momentous occasion, being the first time the maritime security was deliberated in a holistic manner as an exclusive agenda item in such a high-level global forum. Friends, diverse aspects of maritime security call for not isolated, not concerted, but deeply concerted endeavors so as to protect and support legitimate maritime activities while countering traditional and non-traditional threats in the maritime domain that is the shared heritage of the mankind. This heritage, perceptionally, is undervalued. People need to recognize its depth and worth. India's engagement in regional organizations such as Indian Ocean Commission, the Indian Ocean Rim Association, the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, and the Colombo Security Conclave reflect our commitment to a cooperative approach towards maritime affairs. Friends, these regional initiatives provide a platform for dialogue, cooperation, and collective action, recognizing that the challenges faced in the maritime domain are not confined by borders. I need not indicate to this august assemblage that your being present here, interacting with each other on the sidelines, is also very significant. It paves the way for innovation. It helps you chalk out a strategy to deal with challenges, and I'm sure your interactions will be highly productive. Friends, the interconnectedness of our oceans demands a collaborative effort to address common concerns, including, as I indicated earlier, and which is of supreme need of the hour: security. Security is no longer a word on oceans. Security is something which is writing on the wall. People who are not directly concerned are also aware of it. Safety, another aspect. Hardly a month passes when this issue is not on the center stage of media. And sustainable development. Maritime boundaries are not mere lines on a map. These are the lifelines of nations, channels through which commerce flows, connecting economies and fostering growth. I need not indicate to this august assemblies the technological import, the connectivity that you sustain. Any lapse in that will be highly debilitating for economic world. Bharat, our nation, recognizes the significance of respecting these boundaries and fostering a rule-based maritime order. It is consistent stance, friends, of our leadership, and our Prime Minister has gone on record that these are not the times of expansion, and all issues need to be resolved through dialogue and diplomacy. The planet needs it. There is no other alternative. We believe, friends, that adherence, and I would say scrupulous adherence, to international law, including the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, is imperative, essential, and the only way, with no other options available, for peaceful coexistence and sustainable use of maritime resources. In the present times, I'm sure nobody will disagree. This aspect is severely strained and compromised. Unilateral actions, and there are many instances if we look to even past few months, and disregard of international law can have far-reaching consequences, jeopardizing the stability and security of the entire nation, entire region, and if not contained well in time, it can go beyond regional disputes. With a history of maritime excellence, the Indian Navy is dedicated to upholding the principles of freedom of navigation, promoting regional stability, and responding to emerging challenges in the maritime domain. The Indian Navy has been instrumental in fostering regional cooperation through initiatives, the one for which you all are here, MILAN, providing a meaningful platform for navies from around the world to be on the same page, share experiences, and nurture enduring partnerships. Friends, as you all will engage in discussions, let us work collectively and in togetherness to explore avenues for deeper cooperation, cutting-edge cooperation, out-of-box cooperation, exchange of ideas and best practices to address the evolving challenges in maritime domain. As a person not directly connected with your domain, I can say, your challenges can come from anywhere. Your challenges can emanate any time. Your preparedness will have to be 24/7. I extend, friends, my gratitude to all the participants for their commitment to this cause and look forward to our fruitful deliberations during MILAN 24. To my foreign delegates, you are in the land of culture that has civilizational depth of more than 5,000 years. I am sure you will have cherished moments in this country and in this city. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, sir. Now we will have the release of the Information Fusion Center, Indian Ocean Region, IFC-IOR, Annual Report of 2023. The IFC-IOR is the primary information hub in the Indian Ocean region, which aims to enhance maritime safety and security through collaboration with its linkages. The annual reports of the IFC-IOR encapsulate comprehensive overview of the non-traditional maritime threats in the wider Indian Ocean region, providing in-depth analysis and valuable insights for a safer and secure maritime domain. May I request the Honorable Vice President of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar ji, to unveil the IFC-IOR Annual Report of 2023. The annual report of 2023 also highlights the substantial increase in hybrid maritime security threats in the Red Sea and Western Indian Ocean and resurgence of piracy in the latter part of the year. Thank you, sir. May I request the Chief of the Naval Staff, Admiral R. Hari Kumar, to please felicitate the Honorable Vice President of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar ji. Thank you very much, sir. May I also request the Chief of the Naval Staff to please felicitate the Honorable Governor of Andhra Pradesh, Shri Justice S. Abdul Nazir. Thank you, sirs. May I now request all present in the auditorium to rise for the national anthem.